There are some paths in this world that cannot be found on any map. They do not appear in daylight, nor do they reveal themselves to those who walk without purpose. Instead, they wait quietly, hidden between ordinary moments, behind the noise of daily life, and they open only for the hearts that are tired enough to notice them. He discovered such a path on a day when nothing seemed to go right. His mind was heavy, quietly overflowing with thoughts he didn't have the strength to untangle. Work had drained him, people had worn him out, and even the small comforts of life felt strangely distant. So he left his house without any plan, hoping a simple walk might ease the ache pressing against his ribs. The evening sun was sinking slowly, painting the world in warm shades of gold. He followed a familiar road, the one he had walked 1,000 times before, but this time something felt different. A pull, a soft invitation, as if the world was nudging him gently to look a little more closely. That was when he saw it. Between two old oak trees, where there should have been nothing but shadow, a narrow trail shimmered faintly. It was almost invisible, like the outline of a dream caught between waking and sleep. For a moment, he blinked, wondering if his tired mind was playing tricks on him. But the path did not fade. Instead, it pulsed softly with light, as though it recognized him. A strange calm washed through him. Without truly understanding why, he stepped forward. Leaves rustled softly beneath his shoes, but the moment he crossed under the arching branches, the world behind him fell away, distant, muted, unimportant. The forest ahead felt impossibly gentle, wrapped in a quiet that soothed him more than any comforting words ever could. The air smelled of pine and cool earth, carrying hints of something sweet and peaceful. Birds sang softly, their melodies light and unhurried. Sunlight slipped through the leaves like thin streams of honey, painting golden patterns across the ground. With each step he took, the tightness inside his chest began to loosen, breath by breath. It felt as if the forest understood every unspoken worry he carried, not with pity, but with a kind of warm acceptance. He slowed down, letting the silence settle around him like a soft blanket. His thoughts became gentler, quieter, no longer sharp or overwhelming. For the first time in a long while, he truly felt himself breathe. The path continued forward, winding deeper into a world that felt untouched by stress, untouched by noise, a place made entirely of peace. And without knowing where it led, he followed. Because sometimes the heart recognizes the way long before the mind does. The deeper he walked, the more the forest felt alive in a way he had never experienced before. Not alive in the ordinary sense, not just wind-moving leaves or birds rustling high in the branches, but alive in a quiet, comforting, almost human way. It felt as though the entire forest was paying attention to him, not judging, not questioning, just listening. He paused for a moment, placing a hand against the rough bark of a tree beside him. It was warm, not from the sun, but from something deeper, something that made him feel strangely understood. A soft sigh escaped his lips, the first sound he had made since stepping onto the path. The forest answered with silence, a silence that didn't feel empty, but full. The leaves above him swayed gently, even though the air was still. Small golden specks drifted down, glowing faintly like sleepy fireflies. He watched them settle onto the ground, melting into the earth like tiny stars returning home. He continued walking, slower now, letting the forest set the pace. Each step felt lighter than the last. It was as if the ground itself cushioned his feet, softening the weight he had carried for so long. His shoulders relaxed, his thoughts softened. The ache behind his eyes faded into something warm and manageable. The path curved gently to the right, leading him toward a small clearing. He stepped into it, and for the first time, the sky opened above him in a wide, gentle breath of blue. Sunlight pooled in the grass like warm milk, soft and glowing. The air smelled of calm. He sat down without thinking, as if the ground had quietly invited him to rest. The moment he settled, a breeze brushed past, cool and slow, carrying with it the faint sound of distant chimes. He looked around, trying to find their source, but there was nothing visible. Only trees swaying slightly, as if they were exhaling in relief. Maybe the sound wasn't coming from the world around him. Maybe it was coming from inside him, the sound of something finally loosening. He leaned back on his hands, tilting his head toward the sky. Clouds drifted above him in shapes soft enough to fall asleep on. His heartbeat slowed, calmly matching the rhythm of the forest. For the first time all day, maybe for the first time all month, he felt safe. The forest didn't ask him to smile, didn't ask him to be strong, didn't ask him to pretend he wasn't tired. It simply let him be. As he closed his eyes for a moment, the warmth of the clearing wrapped around him like a blanket. His breathing deepened, steady and peaceful. It felt like the world, this small world hidden inside the larger one, was willing to carry everything he couldn't. And somewhere far ahead, the path waited patiently, glowing softly, ready to guide him whenever he chose to rise again. When he finally rose from the warm clearing, the forest greeted him with a gentle hush, as if it had been waiting for him to continue. The path stretched ahead, narrower now, winding between tall trees whose branches arced like protective arms above him. The air grew slightly cooler, carrying a faint sweetness, almost like warm tea mixed with night air. He walked slowly, letting his fingertips brush against the leaves as he passed. Each time his skin touched them, they shimmered faintly, glowing with soft silver light before fading back to green. It was subtle, delicate, like the forest was responding to him in a language older than words. The deeper he went, the softer everything became. The harsh edges of reality, the noise, the stress, the endless pace of life seemed to dissolve behind him. Here, every step felt meaningful and gentle, as if he was walking through a place designed purely for quiet souls. Up ahead, small glowing shapes drifted between the trees. At first, he thought they were fireflies, but as he came closer, he realized they were something different. Tiny floating orbs, each one glowing with its own soft color. They danced slowly in the air, twirling like sleepy stars that had wandered away from the sky. One of them drifted near him. When it passed in front of his face, the orb pulsed softly, and a memory flashed in his mind. Brief, warm, forgotten. A moment from long ago. Him as a child, lying in the grass and watching the night sky with his mother. Her voice whispering, "Some stars listen more closely than others." He froze. The orb blinked once, then floated away, leaving him with a strange ache in his chest, an ache that felt both painful and comforting. Were these orbs dreams, memories, something else entirely? He didn't know, but they made him feel less alone. As he followed them deeper into the forest, the trees changed color. Their trunks shimmered with faint blues and purples, as if moonlight had seeped into them. The ground beneath him glowed softly with each step, leaving dim footprints of light that faded after a few seconds. It felt like walking through the border between awake and asleep. He reached a small wooden bridge spanning a narrow stream. The water glowed gently, passing over the stones with a sound like distant lullabies. He leaned over the railing, listening. His reflection in the water looked calmer, eyes softer, shoulders lighter, the shadow of worry fading from his face. A soft wind swept through the trees, carrying whispers, gentle, wordless, soothing. They wrapped around him like a soft blanket, guiding him forward. The forest wasn't just listening to him now, it was speaking. Not in sentences, not in sounds, but in feeling. And deep down, he understood. This place wasn't leading him to dreams, it was preparing him for them. When he finally rose from the warm clearing, the forest greeted him with a gentle hush, as if it had been waiting for him to continue. The path stretched ahead, narrower now, winding between tall trees whose branches arced like protective arms above him. The air grew slightly cooler, carrying a faint sweetness, almost like warm tea mixed with night air. He walked slowly, letting his fingertips brush against the leaves as he passed. Each time his skin touched them, they shimmered faintly, glowing with soft silver light before fading back to green. It was subtle, delicate, like the forest was responding to him in a language older than words. The deeper he went, the softer everything became. The harsh edges of reality, The noise, the stress, the endless pace of life seemed to dissolve behind him. Here, every step felt meaningful and gentle, as if he was walking through a place designed purely for quiet souls. Up ahead, small glowing shapes drifted between the trees. At first, he thought they were fireflies, but as he came closer, he realized they were something different. Tiny floating orbs, each one glowing with its own soft color. They danced slowly in the air, twirling like sleepy stars that had wandered away from the sky. One of them drifted near him. When it passed in front of his face, the orb pulsed softly, and a memory flashed in his mind, brief, warm, forgotten. A moment from long ago, him as a child lying in the grass and watching the night sky with his mother. Her voice whispering, "Some stars listen more closely than others." He froze. The orb blinked once, then the path soon led him to a place that felt different from the rest of the forest, deeper, quieter, almost sacred. The trees opened into a wide circular clearing, and in the center stood dozens of lanterns floating gently above the ground. They were suspended by nothing, drifting slowly in a soft spiral, glowing like warm stars captured inside glass. Some lanterns glowed golden like candlelight. Others shimmered silver, pale blue, or soft rose. Each one pulsed gently like a slow heartbeat. He stepped closer, mesmerized. As he neared the lanterns, one drifted down toward him. Its glow warmed the air around him, and he could hear something faint inside it, like a whisper trying to reach the surface. He held out his hand. The lantern hovered just above his palm, spinning slowly, and then a soft voice escaped from within, a child's voice. "I wish I could be brave." The moment the words were spoken, the lantern flickered and floated back into the spiral, as if relieved to have finally been heard. He watched silently, his chest tightening. These weren't ordinary lanterns. They were holding something. Wishes, maybe? Hopes, or quiet prayers spoken long ago. A second lantern drifted close. This one glowed a pale lavender. When it reached him, the whisper inside it was older, rougher, tired. "I wish the world would stop hurting for a moment." He exhaled slowly. The forest truly was a refuge, not just for him, but for every heart that had once needed a place to rest. He walked deeper among the lanterns, not touching them, just listening. Each one carried a single sentence, whispered by someone who had hoped the stars might hear them someday. "I wish I didn't feel alone anymore. I wish I could go back to a simpler time. I wish someone understood me." Every voice, every wish, every quiet prayer, they were pieces of people, real moments of longing, floating softly like fragile fire. And strangely, instead of feeling heavy, the clearing felt gentle, comforting, as if the forest was keeping every wish safe, holding them until the world became kinder. He moved slowly between the glowing spirals, feeling a warmth settle into his chest. For so long, he had carried his own wishes quietly, never speaking them aloud. He had told himself they weren't important, that he needed to stay strong, that silence was easier. But now, standing among the floating hopes of hundreds of unseen souls, he wondered, had the forest brought him here so he could finally let his own wish breathe? The breeze shifted. A lantern glowing soft green drifted toward him, stopping directly in front of his heart. It waited. He swallowed. His voice came out barely above a whisper, but true. "I wish for peace inside myself." The lantern brightened, softly, beautifully, then drifted upward, joining the others as if welcoming his wish home. And as it rose, something inside him lifted too. He stood for a long time watching his wish drift upward with the others, glowing softly, almost shyly, as if it had finally found a place where it belonged. The warmth in his chest spread slowly, filling spaces he hadn't even realized were empty. When he finally stepped out of the lantern clearing, the forest around him seemed even quieter than before. Quiet in a way that felt intentional, like it was listening closely. The path ahead grew narrow and soft, covered in velvety moss that cushioned every step. The air shimmered faintly, as though small currents of light moved through it. He could feel something pulling him forward, not urgently, but gently, with patience. Whatever was waiting ahead, the forest wanted him to see it. He walked deeper until the trees parted into a new clearing, smaller, more intimate. At its center stood a single massive tree, older than anything he had ever seen. Its trunk twisted upward like woven roots of time itself, and its branches spread wide enough to shelter an entire village. Soft lights moved slowly across the bark, like starlight slipping under the skin of the tree. When he stepped closer, the ground shifted, not physically, but in feeling, as if the forest recognized him. A warm breeze rolled outward from the tree, brushing against him like the calm breath of something ancient and kind. Leaves rustled softly overhead, though there was no wind. And then, he heard his name. Not spoken aloud, not echoed in the air, but whispered directly into the center of his being. His breath caught. He hadn't heard his name said with such tenderness in years, not with care, not with understanding, certainly not with love. But the forest spoke it as though it had known him his entire life, as though it had been waiting patiently for him to arrive. He stepped closer, placing a hand against the bark. It was warm, pulsing softly. The moment his fingers touched the tree, a deep wave of calm swept through him, so powerful he had to close his eyes. Images flickered behind his eyelids, gentle, wordless scenes. His childhood laughter, the first night he cried quietly into his pillow, the long walks he used to take just to breathe, the dreams he told no one about, the moments he thought no one had ever noticed. But the forest had noticed. It had gathered every piece of him he had dropped along the way. Tears slipped down his cheek before he understood they were falling. Not because of sadness, because of relief. Real, honest relief. He leaned his forehead against the tree, letting the calm settle into his bones. He felt held, not by a person, not by words, but by something bigger, deeper, something that understood the truth he had always carried. He was tired, he was hurting, and he deserved peace. The tree's light brightened softly, embracing him in its glow. For the first time in a long, long while, he believed that maybe peace wasn't impossible after all. He didn't know how long he stayed with the ancient tree. Time flowed differently here, moving like a soft tide rather than a ticking clock. When he finally stepped back, the glow of the tree dimmed slightly, as if giving him a gentle nod, an affirmation that he had received what he came for, even if he hadn't known what he needed when he first arrived. The forest around him shifted slightly. A narrow trail unfolded at the edge of the clearing, woven from silver light and soft moss. It wasn't the same path he had entered through. This one felt warmer, familiar in a new way, like a road leading home after a long, overdue journey. He exhaled slowly, the breath trembling just slightly, but peaceful. As he walked, the forest followed him with quiet affection. The glowing orbs drifted beside him like floating companions, occasionally pulsing as if in farewell. He watched them gently disappear into the leaves one by one, returning to whatever dream place they came from. The deeper he walked along the silver trail, the more the forest softened. Colors faded into calm shades of blue and gold. The sounds grew quieter, descending into a soft hum that vibrated comfortably through his chest. His body felt lighter, as if the weight he had carried for so many years had been gently lifted by unseen hands. When he reached the wooden bridge again, the one he had crossed earlier, the water below shimmered even brighter than before. This time, when he looked at his reflection, he didn't see a tired, heavy-eyed version of himself. Instead, he saw someone softer, someone clearer, someone who had remembered how to breathe. He lingered for a moment, watching the rippling image. Not confused, not afraid, but grateful. Crossing the bridge felt like a quiet promise to himself. The lantern clearing wasn't far from here. As he approached, he found the lanterns drifting higher now, rising slowly like small wishes returning to the sky. His own lantern, the soft green one, drifted up last. It glowed warmly, and for a moment he thought he heard his own voice echoed back to him. Peace inside myself. The lantern pulsed once, then floated upward until it disappeared into the branches, becoming one with the night. He smiled, soft, genuine. The path beyond the clearing began to brighten, revealing the familiar archway of trees through which he had first entered the stream-like world. The forest's walls shimmered gently, almost like tears in the eyes of an old friend saying goodbye. He stepped through the arch, and the forest folded behind him, silent and secret once more. The evening light met him on the other side, soft and golden. The sounds of the ordinary world returned, distant cars, quiet voices, the hum of life. But none of it felt overwhelming now. The peace he had found didn't stay in the forest. It stayed in him. He took a deep breath. The sky above glowed with the first stars of the night, shining softly, listening. And for the first time in a very long time, he felt ready to live again.